โมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังสารนังกัจฉามิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิทุติยัมปิพุทธังสารนังกัจฉามิทุติยัมปิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิทุติยัมปิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิตาติยัมปิพุทธังสารนังกัจฉามิตาติยัมปิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิตาติยัมปิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิปานาติปาตาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิอาทินนาทานาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิกาเมสุมิจฉาจาราเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิมุสาวาทาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิสุราเมรยามัจจาปมาทฐานาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิอิมานิปัญจสิกขาปทานิสีเลนะสุขติงยันติสีเลนะโภคสัมปทาสีเลนะนิพุติงยันติทัสมาสีลังวิโสทะเยSo before we move on to Dhamma talk for today, I would like everyone to sit for meditation for maybe half an hour. Is anyone completely new to meditation here? Have you meditated with me before? Yes? Yes? Sure? Yes? Not sure? Okay. Okay, so for those who are completely new, I would like to advise you to imagine a bright sun shining in the sky. Can you imagine that? Bright sun shining in the sky. Can you think of it? What color is it when you think of it? Okay. What color? No, old people, I'm not asking. Yellow, orange? Yeah? Okay. You got an answer? Got an answer yet? Not sure? Not telling? How can I know that you can really see it then?
Maybe shy.
Don't need to be shy, yeah? Any answer is a good answer. If you cannot think of the sun, then think of maybe diamond. You like to think of a diamond? Better? No? A star? No? What do you like to think of then? Flower? A mango? Maybe? Can you think of a mango? No. if you like to think of something, you can think of it, okay? If you don't like to think of something, I don't insist, okay? But I think you can, it's just you are too embarrassed to say. And the reason why we think of the sun when we are meditating is because if we can see the sun in our imagination, we can be sure that is where our mind is located. Because if your mind wanders somewhere else, it will disappear. So when we are meditating, we think of the sun like it is shining inside our stomach. Yeah? Not so difficult? No. But if your mind wanders somewhere else, you have to bring it back to your sun, okay? And if the sun disappears, you can think of a new one. And if you don't like to think of the sun, you can think of something else. It's up to you, okay? So we try meditating now for about half an hour, okay? Not too long? No. So I'd like to invite everyone to close their eyes very gently. Close your eyes in just the same way you close your eyes to go to sleep. Relax all the muscles of your body. And make sure that your breathing and your circulation are relaxed and unimpeded. If any part of your body is not completely relaxed, then adjust your body to minimize any possible aches or pains. Try to find a position for yourself by which you feel alert and yet relaxed. Although our meditation is mostly about relaxing our mind, we must spend a few moments to relax our body first. Because if our body is not relaxed, it's going to be difficult for our mind to relax. So we start by relaxing the muscles of our forehead, our eyebrows and eyelids, making sure our eyes are only very gently closed. We never squeeze our eyes closed, but close our eyes gently in the same way we close our eyes to go to sleep. And we relax the muscles of our face, our neck. We relax both shoulders, both arms, down to the tips of our fingers. relax our chest, trunk and abdomen, both of our legs, down to the tips of our toes. So that all the way from the top of our head to the tips of our toes, there's no part of our body with any stress or tension anymore. If we notice any tension remaining in our body, we do our best to relax it completely. As if our body melted away into the atmosphere around us. As if we had forgotten about our body completely. Now, with our body relaxed, we also take a few moments to relax our mind. The easiest way to relax the mind is just to forget for a few moments about all the worries, all the things on our mind in our everyday life. Thoughts of work, friends, family, school. Thoughts of the future and the past. We put all of these thoughts on one side for the moment. Just like we cleared up all the documents on our office desk, put them away in the drawer, locked it with a key. In the same way, we empty our mind completely of any thoughts. Instead, we make our mind light, radiant, spacious and refreshed. We fill our mind instead with happiness and joy, as if tiny particles of happiness and joy completely filled the mind, leaving no space in the mind for any other sort of thought. When we feel relaxed, both in body and in mind, very gently, using no effort at all, we imagine that inside our body is just an empty space, with no organs or tissues, no muscles or bones, just a hollow space inside ourselves. If you like, you can imagine that your body is like a bubble, with a thin, transparent skin and hollow inside. With no organs or tissues, no muscles or bones. Now, very slowly and gently, at a point in the middle of our body, we remember the image of the bright, shining sun, which we saw a few moments ago. Maybe yellow or white in color, red or gold, it doesn't matter. If you can't think of the sun, then think of any other round, bright object which you find easiest to imagine. Imagine that object as continuously as you can, for as long as you can, with a very gentle attention. I cannot emphasize how important the word gentle is, because many people use too much force when they come to meditate. They think that if they stare or if they use force on their meditation, it's going to help them to get results. But in fact, it only stops the meditation from progressing. Therefore, be very gentle, be very light in the way you place your mind in the center. If you find your mind wanders anywhere else, as soon as you realize, always bring your mind back again to the center of the body as before. If your bright object disappears, you can always think of a new one. If the object changes in size, shape, color, or form, simply observe at its center. Observe always at the brightest spot in the center of the object. And before long you start to find that the object will evolve and transform of its own accord, changing to become an object which is more perfect inside us, such as a bright clear sphere like a crystal ball, or maybe a bright clear Buddha image inside ourselves. In the beginning, for those who are not used to meditation, the mind will wander a lot. The sounds around us, sensations in our body, or thoughts in our head. But our job as a meditator, if our mind should wander, so is to bring our mind back again to the center each and every time. However many times it takes for our mind to settle in the center. In the beginning, the object which we can observe in our center will not be very distinct. It may seem lifeless, or maybe as if it's flat and dull, maybe as if we can see only part of the object. Later, as our mind becomes more settled in the center, the object will become more lifelike. We'll be able to see the whole of the object, as if we were seeing it in 3 dimensions. And the feeling we get from looking at the object will be different from before. Now, the object will give us a feeling of joy when we observe it. Feeling of joy which helps us to keep our mind on the object the whole of the time. Because if our mind wanders away, that sense of joy will disappear. Keep our mind always at the center of whatever we see. What we find is that the object will become gradually clearer, softer. Now it will be an object not the same as the one we imagined, but an object which occurs by itself. spontaneously arising object. If we keep on observing at its center, the object will transform further to an object which is of the form we can expand or contract at will. Till eventually it will become an object which is so clear and bright that we know it's something different to what we have experienced before. Often bright, sparkling like a diamond, brighter than the midday sun. Giving a sense of expansion in the mind, whereby we see that this point in the center is no longer a point, but it's the beginning of a pathway. Pathway like a bright tunnel which seems to lead ever downwards inside us. With or without Buddha images inside. So our job simply to rest our mind in stillness at the center. And as soon as our mind is sufficiently subtle, the mind will go deeper inside. Deeper to draw upon the knowledge of all the Buddhas inside us. Along an axis which eventually will lead us all the way to Nirvana itself. Purifying and clarifying the mind as we go. So now for a few more moments in silence we cultivate the mind. Stillness at the center. With or without a bright object, or simply observing what is already there to be seen. Each their own practice now in silence until we come to the appropriate time. forget if your mind wanders anywhere else. No matter whether it be to the sounds around you, sensations in your body, or thoughts in your head. As soon as you realize, always bring your mind back again to the center of the body as before. Keep our mind always at the center of the body the whole of the time. The center of whatever inner experience we have attained for ourselves. Whether it be a feeling of stillness inside, brightness inside, sphere inside, inner body's inside, or Buddha image inside ourselves. Place our mind gently at the center of whatever inner experience we have achieved. And allowing our mind to come to a standstill at that point, we gradually make a wish at our center, at all the merit coming to us from our taking the 5 precepts, from performing Buddha Puja, and from our meditation to straighten out our views, calm our mind. May all this merit come together as a clear sphere of merit in our center, helping to attract into our lives all the very best of things, opportunities and people, while helping to protect us from all dangers, leading us to success in our lives, whether it be family or business, giving us the encouragement we need to do goodness throughout our lives, whether it be studying hard as a child, working hard as an adult, educating our family to know the difference between good and evil, and make a wish on the basis of this merit for the last few moments of our meditation.สเปพุทธาภลปตาปัจเจกานัญจยามพลังอรหันตานัญจเตเจนะราคัมบันดามิสัพพโสเยจรตาสุกิตาวิรุณหาพุทธศาสเนโรคาสุกิตาโหตัสสะเปหิยติภิสัพพพุทธานุภาเวนะสัพพธัมมานุภาเวนะสัพพสังฆานุภาเวนะสัทธาสรถีภะวันตุเท If you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for this evening, you can gradually open your eyes. So for those who are new, can you manage that okay? Yeah? Meditation? Yeah? Yeah? How about little one? Yeah? And what can you see? Too shy? Oh, she can tell her mom, and her mom can tell me later. Okay. Well, today we have a time for a talk, and today I would like to talk about talking. A talk about talking. Because it's said that although there are many ways to do bad things in our lives, whether it be killing or stealing or whatever, the easiest way to make bad karma for oneself is by the bad things which we may say. It's the most common mistake which we make, even though we try to do good things in our lives. Often a slip of the tongue can lead us to create a lot of bad karma for ourselves. And in the traditional words of the Thai people, they said, when we are born we have 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, but why should we only have 1 mouth? Especially when we have to use our mouth for 2 things, for and eating. But we only have 1 mouth. Why should this be? Well, it has to be a reason for everything. And it said that it's because we are not supposed to talk too much. Especially not when we're eating. But it's true that most people don't think very hard about the things which they say. And although it may seem trivial, and although it may seem that the words we say cannot do much harm to anybody, but in fact nothing destroys a person's morale more than a few badly spoken words, right? Supposing someone needs encouragement and you say something to upset them, that can be the final blow, which may even lead them to commit suicide. Just by a few words, it may cause a death. So what we say is very important, for sure. But if you ask most people how they decide what to say or what not to say, most people don't have much idea. Most people just say what is the easiest to say. Most people just say what is convenient to say. They don't think about what is really going to be good or bad as a result of the things which they say. In Buddhism, we are lucky because the Lord Buddha was very detailed in the way he gave advice to us about the things which we should or should not say. And the things which he discussed about what we say are more detailed than many books about public speaking that you see in the bookshops today. Because he talked about the content of what we say, he talked about the worth of what we say, and he even talked about the words which we use to say them. Very detailed, because Buddhism is a very detailed science. But the reason he was so detailed was because he knew how little most people care about what they say. From the 4th precept, we know very well that what we should say should not be a lie, right? But sometimes just for something to be true doesn't mean that you should say it. Supposing a person is disabled, and you say, "Oh, you're disabled." You think that's a helpful thing to say? Why not? Why isn't it useful? Hmm? Yes, that's true. And why more? Well, do you think they know they're disabled? So, does you saying it help them to know anything new? No. So, it's not useful, is it? And like Yusta said, normally someone who says it like that doesn't say it because of compassion. And even if they did say it out of compassion, there must be a nicer way to say it. It's too direct. And it may come at a time when that person is not ready to hear it. In English we say it's stating the obvious. If something is obvious, you don't need to talk about it. And this is why for many countries where we have majority of Buddhists living, you find that many people don't say very much. They don't express an opinion so much. And some people might say, well, this shows that Buddhists are not very clever. Because if you're clever, then you must have lots of opinions about everything. But in fact, it's not true. Because Buddhists think carefully before they say things. And if they decide that it's not worth saying, then they keep their silence. And we have something in Buddhism which we call noble silence. Especially on things which are not worth discussing. So, what did the Buddha recommend about the things which we should say? If you like, you can call it 5-star speech. You heard of 5-star hotel? Yeah? Is it good? It's all right. If there's 7 stars, then it's better, Normally, if you go in a 5-star hotel, if it's too expensive, then you say, well, maybe I go to 3-star hotel, or maybe 1-star hotel, or maybe a hotel with no stars. Save some money. But for speech, the Buddha said that only 5-star speech will do. Any less than 5 stars, you shouldn't say it at all. So what do we mean by our 5 stars? What should be the first consideration for whether you say something or not? Well, 4th precept says, don't lie, so what you say must be true. So, 1st star, anything which you say must be completely true. So, what about a white lie then? You know what a white lie is? What's a white lie? Who can give an example of a white lie? Go on.
If you're walking up on a mountain and there's a lonely path, and you go to the top of the mountain, and some people say that you're tired, and you say that's going to be
Yeah, this is what we call a white lie, because it is telling something which is not true, but in the end to get a good effect. For example, you say to the children, don't play the computer game, the computer will electrocute you. So all the children, whoa, can't play on the computer anymore, or else they will die. And this is very convenient for the parents, because all the children are so scared that they don't play the computer games anymore, and the house is very peaceful. It's not true, but the parents say this because it's a convenient way to get the children to behave. It's called a white lie. Sometimes people are in the hospital, they are dying of cancer. And the relatives think they are doing them a favor. They say, oh, you're sure to get better in a week or two. So the person continues thinking they are going to recover, and eventually they die because without preparing themselves first. So that's not good either. In fact, even in Buddhism, white lies are not worth saying. If you are someone who says white lies, then it's as if you are not true to your word. It's not a noble person who says white lies. For example, if you want to get your children to behave, you have to find a truthful way to explain the reasons why to behave is good, not just to trick your children. So first thing must be completely true. If you're going to get 1 star, what's the second thing we should consider? Just now we had the story where we were telling them the obvious. For example, supposing in a town, a man is a gangster, and everyone knows that this man is a gangster. So someone comes along and they say, oh, he's a gangster. And everyone says, well, everyone knows that. So there's no point in saying it. It's true, but there's no point in saying it, because everyone knew it anyway. It's a waste of breath to say it. A person who is truly skilled in speaking, they will say only things which are of benefit. If it's not of benefit, even though it may be true, then they don't waste their time to say it. In our Sigalovada Sutta, we see the characteristics of a good friend. And it says that a good friend always will have something new to tell his friend, something which his friend has not heard before. Can you remember that? So it must mean that the person who is a true friend to somebody, they don't keep old things which they have heard before to tell them again and again, but they tell them only things if it's new. Otherwise, what's the point of saying it? So what's 2nd star for artful speech? Must be true, must be of benefit to the person who hears it. Yeah? So far so good? Next thing. The way you say it and what you say must be said out of compassion for the person who hears it. What does compassion mean? Can you give an example of compassion? For example, if you see a dog with his foot trapped in a fence, if you have compassion, what would you do? You help the dog to get free from the trap. So if you see that someone is suffering, then you say something to help to reduce their suffering. This is what we mean by compassion. So normally, if you say something, it should be something which helps that person to overcome suffering or helps that person to have more happiness. This is what we mean by saying something out of compassion. So if you say something, even though it may be true, even though it may be of benefit, but it's not said with the intention of compassion, then better not say it. very good example of this is the sort of thing which people say when they are angry. If you are angry, do you have compassion in your mind? No. And what sort of things do people normally say when they are angry? Hateful things, yeah. Even though those things may be true, maybe they may be things which are of benefit, but if they say it with an angry mind, normally it comes out all wrong, and it ends up hurting the people who hear it. Sometimes because the way they say it is not a very polite way of saying it. So what does this teach us? If you are ever angry, better keep your mouth shut until you are in a better temper, and then it's better to say it. Because when you're angry, you don't have any compassion left in your mind. Some things which people say out of compassion, sometimes the person doesn't want to hear them. Especially if it's advice or criticism, sometimes it's said out of compassion because you feel sorry for the person that they keep making this mistake again and again. Sometimes when you mention it to them, they may not be happy. They don't want to admit that they are making a mistake. But as a Buddhist, sometimes it's not easy to say these things. But yet, out of compassion, we have to say it, so that that person may have the chance to improve themselves. For example, sometimes a person has got some food on their face, and they cannot see it. If you didn't love that person, maybe you say, oh, it's funny that everyone will tease him, I just leave him to his stupidity. Is that compassionate? No. But if you say, excuse me, you have egg on your face, then you're saying it out of compassion. Right? So that's something useful to say. It saves that person from embarrassment. Good example? So how many stars so far? 3. So what are the 3? True, benefit, on the basis of compassion. So how are we going to get our 4th star? Well, there are many ways of saying the same thing. Supposing you want someone to help you, you might say to them, excuse me, would you be ever so kind to stand up and come over here and give me a hand? And that would be a nice, flowery way of telling a person to help you. If you are not so flowery in your language, you say, get off your backside. It has the same effect. The person will get up. But is the feeling the same? No. Which one is better? First one. Would you kindly? It's just like when you are giving something to somebody, you can present it to them, or you can throw it at them. They get the stuff just the same, but the feeling is different. And with words, it's just the same. When you are giving a message to somebody, you should also choose the words so that they feel happy to receive this message from you, not they feel insulted. Some rude words, insulting words, direct words, even some slang. Some people may not be offended by it, but some people may be offended. And if you are really a person who is artful in speech, you should be someone who never speaks words which are not eloquent. A good speaker is someone who knows how to present something in a way which is going to be nice to hear. You can think of a nurse in a hospital who is trying to persuade a patient who is ill to try to eat their dinner. then you can think of the sort of words that they might have to use in order to help the patient to have the encouragement to eat some food. So to use a polite manner of saying something, this is very important. So 4th star is must be endearing words or endearing language. So true, benefit, compassion, endearing words. One last thing. You have to choose the right time to say some things. For example, supposing someone has made a mistake and you are the boss, and you embarrass the person in front of all their friends by pointing out this mistake. Not only will they not want to admit their mistake, they will hate you for your advice as well. So sometimes if you need to criticize someone, it's better to call them to one side and only then mention what is the problem. Because it's their personal problem for them to deal with. It's not for them to deal with a second problem of being teased by all their other friends about it. There was one wife, and she didn't know the secret of this 5th star. And she had a problem with her husband, because every night her husband went drinking. So she thought, well, it would be very true if I told my husband he is drinking too much. And it's also of benefit if I tell my husband he is drinking too much, because then he will drink less. And it's also compassion that I will tell my dear husband that he should stop drinking, because it will help him to live for longer. And also, I am going to tell him in a very endearing way, in a way which he will be very pleased to hear what I have to say to him. So thinking this, the wife went down to the bar where her husband was sitting surrounded by all his drinking friends, and they were all drinking their beer around the table. And she said, "Oh, my dear husband, I have something very important to tell to you. Something I have been thinking about for many, many years, and I'd like to say that you are being a terrible husband and you drink too much beer." Do you think this is a sensible thing to say? What do you think will happen to her? Maybe she will have a beer bottle over her head. Why? Because she forgot the 5th star, which is the right time to say things. In Thai we call it Kala Thesa. Sometimes you have to choose the right time to say something. When would be the right time to say this to the husband? Yes, maybe when he's not drunk as well. Yeah, you see the importance of it? Some things, they don't matter, but especially in the world of Dhamma, where we must point out some things to people which sometimes it's not easy for them to accept. When we are pointing out people's faults or their weaknesses so that they may correct it in the future. What we call pointing out treasure to people. Sometimes you have to check first of all before you say it whether you get full 5 stars or not. Because if you have only 4 stars, maybe you get a beer bottle over your head. Some things you must keep to yourself. Those who are artful in speech, sometimes they must wait for many years to say something to somebody which is important. Because they must wait for the right time to say it. Especially to criticize people, it's very necessary, because sometimes we don't know our own faults. For the person who has food on their face, they don't know it. They must rely on other people to point out their faults to them. Not just for food on their face, but for many other faults which are maybe much more difficult to see than that. We must rely on what we call the good friend to help to point out our weaknesses. But even 5-star speech is not enough when you come to point out a person's faults. There are some other things which you must take into account as well when you are pointing out faults to people. If you are a manager, this is very important, because if your staff are not working properly, then you must criticize them. Otherwise, they're going to make a loss for your company, right? You cannot just let them continue to make mistakes. So you must find a way to tell them what is right or wrong. So there are 2 extra things which you shouldn't forget if ever you must criticize somebody. First one is, when you say something to somebody which is to criticize them, you must show that you have compassion by smiling when you say it, so that they know that you are not finding fault with them, but you are telling it to them out of compassion. Yeah? But sometimes we forget, because we think this is a very serious matter. And when you put on that serious face, they think that you are trying to find fault with them, or they're trying to make an argument with them. But really, we are trying to help them. So if we are trying to help them, we must smile first. Make sure you have a smile on your face, and then you can gradually point out the fault to them. Second thing is, most people like to be complimented. Most people like it if someone comes along and says, "Congratulations, you've done this really well." When you hear "really well," they feel suddenly their heart becomes very light. And this is a good time to point out their fault. "You've done this really well, but there's just one teeny little point which I have to point out, which maybe you wouldn't mind making a few changes." Then they are willing to accept it from you. So normally, as a tactics, if you have to criticize someone, you have to find something to compliment them on first, and only then can you point out their weakness. It's not supposed to be like a judo player who lifts up someone before he drops them on the floor. But it's because everyone has a human nature, okay? No one likes to be criticized, but people like to be praised. But there's a word of warning that you should try to find something genuine to praise them for. Don't just make up something which they can see through right away. "Hey, what a great pair of shoes, but oh, you really made a mess of work today." You have to be something which goes together, okay? And one last thing about criticism is, supposing a person makes 10 mistakes in a day, are you going to criticize them 10 times? If you criticize a person for 10 things in the same day, maybe they won't dare to come back to work anymore. So sometimes you have to start with the most serious things, gradually tell them maybe 2 things a day is enough. You have to be diplomatic when you are talking to people about their faults. But it's very necessary. It's necessary in any place where people live together, work together, or study together. If you cannot point out one another's faults, then in the end, there always will be fragmentation. There always will be problems in the community. So we have to be honest, we have to be sincere with one another. But sincerity doesn't mean just blurting out a person's faults whenever we can remember it. But if all of us have 5-star speech, and especially 7-star speech when it comes to criticizing people, then it means that even though we have only one mouth, but we can use it only to say things which are really artful, really useful. And we can be sure that we have never undermined the progress of our meditation because of anything which has slipped out of our mouth unintentionally. Normally, if you are the higher up you go in society, the more careful you must be of the things which you say. So if you can train yourself in this way, since you are of a young age, or since you are in a lesser position in society, then you are already preparing the way to move up. Because a person who is responsible for other people must be a person who is disciplined in how they speak. So for today, now you know about 5-star speech. And if ever you know there's something sensitive which you must say, you can count it out for yourself first to see whether to keep it to yourself or whether to say it or not. Good? Not too difficult? So I think there's still some time for some questions if anyone would like to ask. No one dares to say anything anymore. I have to count up to 5 first. If you can't think of it, tomorrow is too late. Already fly away to somewhere else.
If they have they don't want to tell it to anybody, they could write it on the paper and give it to you. Maybe.
Yeah, some people do that. Especially some criticism which they cannot bear to tell you to your face. Sometimes they type it on the typewriter with no signature and put it on the bed of the person or on their desk, so that they don't know who it's come from, but they leave it for that person themselves to find out. Yeah, sometimes it happens. But if you write it in handwriting, they know who it's from. Even when I talk about the speech, it also applies to the things which you write, the things which you type, even the messages which you give to people by your gestures. It's all included in speech. And if you write something down, it lasts for longer. If you just say it, then it disappears almost immediately. But it's said that once it's out of your mouth, you cannot take it back in again. Once someone has heard it. This is the frightening thing about the things you can say. If you haven't said it yet, it's still under your control. But once you said it, it's no longer under your control anymore. So this is why you have to be so careful.
Also, I think we can categorize what is useful, even though it's true, maybe not useful, maybe not interesting. Maybe sometimes half true, maybe useful, maybe interesting.
But if it's not completely true, the likes of us, it's not suitable. It's half-truth is suitable for people who like to say things for fun.
To make some use, like when somebody is doing the wrong thing, if you try to tell him very quickly, maybe harmful, just to take a smooth curve,
No, it's useful. Sometimes you gradually tell the truth to somebody. And there are some things like sometimes you may say a joke. In fact, a joke is not strictly true, but it may cheer up a person who is who you consider from your compassion is needs some encouragement. So it's not that Buddhists cannot say anything out of fun. Also, to keep people's encouragement is important. Is it the end? Well, it's nearly the end.
Okay, now maybe they have secret questions we want to read.
They can write it on paper and leave it behind after.
Now can you read it?
So I think we finished just by chanting homage to the Lord Buddha together. So if you'd like to repeat after me. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Bow. Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Bow. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami. Bow. I'd like
to invite everybody to pay respect to the teaching monk by bowing 3 times. Bow. Bow. Bow.
Satu, satu, satu.